Hi there, Zamir for NerdTube. These are my thoughts and spoilers of Extraction 2 Electric Boogaloo starring Chris Hemsworth. So we're back with more Extraction. The first film was actually a big hit for Netflix, so lo and behold, they wanted some sequels and they got it. And I have to say that this film is pretty good when it comes to being an action film. Don't expect Oscar nominated performances, even though Hemsworth is pretty good as in this. Just generally, he's a fantastic actor, very underrated in my opinion. Could be even a James Bond if he was a little bit younger. We all know he can do the English accent, but to a degree, maybe this is a blessing in disguise because he's got his own, franchise building up from scratch, so to speak, with Extraction, and the performances in this, the character he's playing of Tyler Rake, could end up being maybe the new Ethan Hunt or God knows what else in the future as well. So, yeah, this film, as an action film, absolutely superb. Good stuff. I mean, it starts off a little bit slow. We don't get action sequences immediately. We just get the recovery of Tyler Rake after the end of the first movie. He has survived his ordeal. He's not dead, and then just goes through the process of rehabilitating his body, uh, initially retiring, so to speak, before being brought back into the fold because his ex-wife's sister needs extracting. So this is a little bit close to home. She is married to a sort of like underground mob boss, stroke politician, or some guy who basically runs the politics behind the scenes of some Eastern European country that is it's so forgettable that you don't give a fuck. You just know that it's that part of the world, and they actually live in a prison with all these other people. So it's not a very appealing place for Hemsworth's ex-wife's sister as well as their kids to be living in. So she wants to be extracted, and Hemsworth is the man to do it because, as I said earlier, this is a little bit personal. And so when the action scenes finally start, prior to that, obviously he does have a train. We see some nice montages of him, just working out and doing all this sort of stuff. Very Rocky Four like because where he's living is in like some sort of snowy, sort of wilderness setting. But once he does get back into the thick of the action, we see him breaking into that prison, finding the wife and kids, taking them away. But unfortunately for them, like it doesn't go very quietly and smoothly. There's a lot of noise, and shit hits the fan, and some of these prisoners escape, and before you know it, they all escape, and there's a riot going on, and they're in the middle of it, as well as this lady being the only woman there amongst men. They all want a piece of her as well, not knowing who she is regarding the hierarchy, not really caring too much as well. Um, yeah, so some of those scenes were really intense, and then once they do escape the prison, we get onto the road and we get some nice car chasing scenes, and then from there we get onto a train, and we get some nice scenes there as well. And there are some amazing one take shots during all of this action. It's just so beautifully done. Today's action scenes, today's action movies require actors to be their own stuntmen and to be their own martial art, choreographers as well, because they have to be able to do everything if you're going to be involved in this genre, in my opinion. And Chris Hemsworth, physically he can do that. You see what he's like with his shirt off when he's playing Thor. The guy's a fucking Adonis. So him playing this sort of merc, no problem whatsoever. You can see him in the train sequence when the train gets derailed near the end. He's bouncing around the fucking train. Prior to that, he's avoiding bullets and knives and bombs and explosives and shit, and he's bumping around all over the fucking place when he's having fights against two, three, four people at once. he's he's also bumping around and getting thrown over tables and God knows what, and almost getting his head decapitated going through a train tunnel. All of these things, they're fantastic. A lot of these moments all happening in one take, so you're seeing several minutes of one take action with the actor doing it all. It's fucking fantastic. And we get other scenes as well that happens in like the city. I think in Vienna, Austria. There's a nice moment where it becomes very gun toting, so to speak, but still very exhilarating as well. Especially with one particular scene where they're fighting on top of this massive building, on top of standing on these glass panes, where there's only air between them and the and the glass, because if they break through the glass, it's a long fall to the bottom, and those scenes are pretty exhilarating too. Really cool stuff. Unfortunately, I do think the ending um, is not as exciting or as cool as the other action scenes. We get a very personal moment between the main villain and Chris Hemsworth, and funnily enough, the main villain is the uncle of the kids that Hemsworth extracted, and Hemsworth himself, his character is, as I said earlier, his ex-wife, that's his that's the sister he's extracting as well as their kids. So he's also the uncle of those kids. So it's a fucking uncle versus uncle fight at the end. Um, and yeah, because Hemsworth kills off the father as well, so he's out of the picture quite early on. So it's the uncle versus uncle, and it becomes a bit more like sort of personal fights, and there are moments where they're stabbing each other up, and all of these sort of things. It gets a little bit brutal, but it's not as cool or high octane as this action sequences we got earlier on, where Hemsworth and the people he's extracting are being chased around and they're avoiding gunfire and all of that. That's way more cool and way more exciting. This finale was a little bit bog standard and not as thrilling as it should be. But we all know that Hemsworth is going to come out victorious. We also have Idris Elba in this as well. Him and Hemsworth, Heimdall and Thor back together again. And I'm going to try and keep the Marvel references to a low, because there is one moment where Hemsworth's character reaches for a hammer, and I thought they were going to play on Thor with that as well, because a few of his films, he has had a hammer in his hand, but outside of Thor, that is. So in a way, I'm glad he didn't go there, because this film is trying to be a little bit more serious. But yeah, Idris Elba is kind of playing like the role of M, if there is anything like that in this particular universe. He's going to give Hemsworth work. So we see him at the beginning of the movie where he gives Hemsworth work, and then we see him obviously at the end of the movie to say, you know what, we've got another job for you. So, and that's what's going to be his part to play in this series of films, if they do decide to franchise, and hopefully they will with Extraction and do some more, because Hemsworth is really fucking good in this, and then having somebody like Idris Elba on board as well, who is like somebody who's probably an ally but could easily be a foe, will also be pretty cool to add into the mix. Overall, a very, very enjoyable action flick, good popcorn romp, and it's a little bit more adult orientated as well. So it's good to hear Hemsworth, effing and jeffing now and again, telling Idris Elba's character to fuck off when he first sees him. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I love it. Uh, it was very enjoyable. I don't know what I want to mark this though, because I I feel if I give it a too high a mark, this film will come across a lot better than it is. It's good. It's good. It's not. I don't think it's great. I think it's good. And so I'm very much stuck between a 7 and an 8. Because and it's really hard. And this is one of the first times that I'm not sure. I don't want to do a 7.5. I'm not a big fan of half marks. I'm going to be very generous with this movie and give it an 8. I think a 7 is just a it's just a I think it's unworthy of a 7. I think an 8 is probably a bit too much high praise, but nevertheless, that's the mark I'm going to give it. It's a good film. I would love to see this film turn into this series turn into a trilogy with an Extraction 3. I'm sure that's definitely on the cards. By the way the movie ended, I'm pretty sure it will be enjoyable. Just switch your brain off when you watch it. Enjoy the action scenes when they come along. They are pretty good, and you have a very recognizable leading man in Chris Hemsworth running the show. So you got your star power there too, as well as the odd other person who's recognizable, aka Idris Elba. Just to add a little bit more to this film, maybe more than it deserves, but nevertheless, it was enjoyable. Let me know what you think of Extraction 2 Electric Boogaloo, and don't forget to like, share, subscribe to NerdTube, the greatest YouTube channel you never heard of. We're both on YouTube and TikTok.